was it like growing up in a house full of athletes? Because both your parents also were extraordinary athletes, not just, regular athletes, talagang magaling, di ba? So, bata pa lang ba kayo? Parang it was already ingrained in you that you will be an athlete, or it's just something you wanted to try on your own and ended up loving as well?
Well, growing up, like for me, it was really, love at first sight with basketball. It was basketball from the beginning. And then growing up, it was I'd say it was very hostile environment. Uh, when it comes to the household, we compete. Whoever wants to watch TV for the remote, whoever wakes up the earliest, things like that, So when it comes to competition, it's just natural for us. Even though somebody loses, he or she, my sister, my brother, or me, would find some other way to get back at that person, whether, trying to, get one over him. So that's just how it is.
Akala ko like fighting for the remote shootout agad.
No, no, whoever gets to the TV first, that's how it is.
Ayun na yon. Okay.
It only stops when my mom asks for it because she wants to watch her Korean novelas. So
Because
that's the time.
syempre si Tita Mozzie is the queen of the
Yeah,
house, 'di
that's
ba?
the only time it stops.
So, when you say you've been competing your whole lives, di ba meron kayong ring sa likod sa bahay nyo?
Yeah.
Nakita
Oh
ko yung
yeah,
post eh. So, kung wari sa bahay, parang after merienda, sabi niyo, let's shoot some hoops. Competition na
yeah.
agad yon.
It can be as small as that. Even on video games, competition in our backyard. Sometimes we would end up not finishing our games because we would end up fighting, things like that.
Kung wari, makakatapat niyo si 30, hindi ba mahirap na magkalaban rin kayo?
Actually, it's not that hard because, once we step on the court, we know our boundaries. It's just, 40 minutes of just being very, very competitive. And especially for us brothers, we've been competing, our whole lives. It's very innate for us to bring that out when we play each other. It's always nice to play against him because it's competition. We all know one another. We don't want that somebody to have that bragging rights over you. So you try to win and be competitive.
Sino ba usually ang lumalamang sa inyong dalawa?
For a while, it was me. But in recent time, it's 30. That's why I stopped playing when I was on top. So when I was winning, I decided not to play him anymore, knowing that I have a chance to lose already. As a manong, I knew my limits. I had to stop while I was on top.
Okay, you would say this in front of 30 naman. You wouldn't mind saying this in front of him.
Oh, no, 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 no. I wouldn't mind.
Okay lang. Okay. Sige. How about you said pati sa video games? Let's say video games. Who usually wins sa inyong dalawa?
Depends on what we play, but it gets highly competitive. A lot of trash talking, a lot of noise. It can go any other way when it comes to video games, but it's always fun. That's just the nature of how we were brought up in the household. Very competitive.
Well,
Yes.
30, oo. Ay, 30 tuloy. Naku, eto nalilito na ako. Kanina you mentioned with 30, very competitive ka. But of course, your sister si Dani, who's also an athlete, is much younger. How would you describe being a kuya to her naman? Parang mas gentle ka ba? Kasi syempre, younger sister. Tapos you're not as tough as on her as you are on 30.
I don't know. I think I'm not. I guess I'm just cautious of the words that I use. But in terms of being tough, I treat them the same because, we're athletes and like I'm a firm believer of, what 30 gets, you should also get because you're only going to get, straight things from me. I won't sugarcoat anything. I won't tell you what you only need to hear. But I'll be very picky. I'm not just gonna out of nowhere, out of context, just say random things to you, because I know how that works. And for me, as a leader, different people, different ways of communicating. So I know my way of communicating with 30 and I also know my way of communicating with Danny. So that's just how I was able to work my way with them in terms of delivering a message, especially when it comes to how they play or their games and how they are when it comes to their attitude, things like that.
Sinong mas mahirap kausapin sa kanilang dalawa?
30 definitely. See 30 definitely, the problem with 30 is because, he's a very good athlete and he's a very good basketball player as well. Sometimes just, you can't blame him because, he can really do a lot of good things. And just having that guy to remind you every now and then, sometimes, gets hard-headed, gets a little bit stubborn, but There's nobody else who would be patient enough to tell him those things besides me, my mom, and my dad. So
At least ikaw yung isa dun sa mga tao na talagang papakinggan niya, 'di ba?
oh yeah. And then with 30 again, as I've said, he's a very good basketball player. It's very professional. He gets things done. He's very hardworking. So he doesn't really hear a lot from me as much as he hears from my parents, obviously. But when it's time for me to step in, that's the only time. And he listens. I'll give it to him. He listens every time I talk.
Siyempre, 'di ba? Parang when you play the same sport, so parang you're in the same career, you exchange notes. Minsan ba siya rin magbibigay sa iyo ng parang I don't know, not advice but parang his thoughts, his opinion.
Yeah. Especially here in Japan, he's been here longer than I've been, and he knows the players more than I do. So if he knows that we're gonna play a certain team and they just played them recently, he's gonna tell me, he's gonna call me, oh, this player is gonna do this player is like this, like that, and vice versa. And that's what I do to him as well.
Ang sweet naman ni 30.